The ship was cold and quiet when Princess Harin walked into the hangar bay. Her silver robes moved like water around her tall body. Her eyes, the color of moonlight, looked at everything and missed nothing. She was the daughter of the Valoran Emperor, and she had learned to judge others before they could judge her. Today, she was meeting her new protector. The Galactic Council had promised her their best guardian for her journey through the contested rim. This was a dangerous part of space where pirates, killers, and worse things waited in the darkness between stars. Harin had asked for a Korathi warrior. The Korathi were 8 feet tall, with skin like stone and strength that could break metal. They were the finest fighters in the galaxy. Instead, she got a human. He stood alone in the middle of the hangar bay. He was not tall. He was not impressive. His hair was black and cut short. His face was plain and forgettable. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals, no ribbons, no signs of honor or achievement. He looked like someone who worked in a factory, not someone who protected royalty. Harin stopped walking. She turned to her handmaiden Subin, who followed 3 steps behind her as always.
Aye.
"This is a joke," Harin said. Her voice was sharp, like broken glass. "Tell me this is a joke." Subin looked uncomfortable. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. She had served Harin since they were both children. She knew the princess better than anyone, and she knew that Harin was about to be very difficult. "Your Highness," Subin said quietly, "this is the escort the council sent. His name is Taeho. He comes with the highest recommendation from Commander Wujin." "Commander Wujin is a fool," Harin said, loud enough for the human to hear. "The contested rim is full of dangers. Assassins, pirates, criminal organizations that would pay fortunes to capture a Valoran princess. And the council sends me ... this." She pointed at Taeho like he was a piece of broken furniture. The human did not react. He simply bowed, low and respectful. "Your Highness," he said. His voice was calm and empty, like still water. Harin walked closer to him. She was taller than him by half a head. Valorans were a tall species, elegant and beautiful by the standards of most worlds. They lived for 300 years. They could read minds and move objects with their thoughts. They were one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. Humans were none of these things. Harin had studied humans at the Royal Academy. They were a young species, only 200 years into space travel. They had no telepathy. They had no special strength. They could not regenerate wounds like the Siloxi, or survive in vacuum like the Kelvathi. They lived short lives, usually less than 100 years. They were soft, fragile, and unremarkable. "What are your qualifications?" Harin demanded. "I am trained in close protection, Your Highness," Taeho answered. "I have served in 12 escort missions across hostile territories. I am familiar with the contested rim." 12 missions. Harin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have survived 47 assassination attempts since I was a child. I have trained in Valoran combat arts for 60 years. I can kill a man with my mind before he takes his first step toward me. What can you possibly offer me that I do not already have?" Taeho looked at her. For a moment, something moved behind his eyes, something deep and dark that Harin could not read. Then it was gone, and his face was blank again. "I offer my service, Your Highness," he said. Nothing more. Harin turned away from him in disgust. She walked toward the door that led to the main ship, her silver robes flowing behind her. "Stay out of my way, human," she said without looking back. "Try not to embarrass yourself or me." The ship they would travel on was called the Celestial Dawn. It was a diplomatic vessel, fast and well-armed, designed to carry important people through dangerous space. Harin had her own quarters on the upper deck, a beautiful room with wide windows that looked out at the stars. She spent the first night of the journey alone. Reading old texts and practicing her mental exercises, she did not think about the human at all. But on the second day, she noticed something strange. Taeho was always there, not in an obvious way. He did not follow her closely or try to speak to her, but whenever Harin turned around, whenever she walked into a new room, whenever she looked over her shoulder, he was there. 3 steps behind her, silent, watching. He moved like a shadow. She never heard his footsteps. She never sensed his approach. For a telepath like Haran, this was deeply unsettling. She should be able to feel his presence, hear his surface thoughts, sense his emotions. But when she reached out with her mind toward him, she found only silence. It was like trying to touch a wall of ice. "What is wrong with you?" she asked him on the 3rd day, during dinner in her private quarters. "Why can I not read your mind?" Teho sat across from her, eating his food in small, careful bites. He ate very little, Haran noticed. He slept even less. She had checked the ship's records out of curiosity, and found that he had not visited his assigned quarters once since they departed. "I have been trained to resist telepathic intrusion, Your Highness," he said. "Trained? Humans can be trained to block Valoran telepathy?" "With difficulty, yes." Haran leaned back in her chair, studying him with new interest. "That training must have been painful." "It was, Your Highness." "How painful?" Teho set down his utensils. He looked at her directly, and Haran felt a small chill run down her spine. There was something in his eyes, something old and cold, that did not belong in such a young face. "I do not remember most of it," he said. "They say that is normal. The mind protects itself by forgetting." Haran did not know what to say to that. She looked down at her own food, suddenly not hungry. She had read his file before this conversation. Most of it was blocked out with black marks, hidden information that even a princess could not access. But she had seen 2 words in the commendation section, 2 words that she did not understand. Soul survivor. "What did you survive?" she asked quietly. Teho stood up and collected her empty plates. He moved toward the door without answering. "Get some rest, Your Highness," he said. "We enter the contested rim tomorrow. I will be outside your door if you need me." Then he was gone, and Haran was alone with her thoughts and her questions and the strange feeling that she had badly misjudged this quiet, forgettable human. The contested rim was the darkest part of the galaxy. No empire controlled it. No laws protected travelers who passed through. It was a place of broken moons and dead planets, where the light of distant stars barely reached. Ships disappeared here all the time. Some were taken by pirates. Some were destroyed by asteroid storms. Some simply vanished, and no one ever knew why. Haran stood at the window of her quarters and watched the darkness outside. The stars here were fewer and farther apart. It felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. Behind her, as always, Teho stood in his usual position. 3 steps back, hands clasped behind him, face blank and unreadable. 4 days had passed since they entered the rim. 4 days of silence and tension, waiting for something bad to happen. Haran had grown used to the human's presence, though she would never admit it. He was like a piece of furniture that happened to breathe. "Do you ever talk?" she asked without turning around. "Do you have thoughts, opinions, a personality hiding somewhere in that empty head of yours?" "My opinions are not relevant to your safety, Your Highness. Everything is relevant when you are trapped on a ship for weeks with nothing to do." Haran finally turned to face him. "Tell me something about yourself. Anything. I am dying of boredom." Teho considered her request for a long moment. Then he said, "I like to cook." Haran blinked. "What? Cooking? I enjoy it. When I am not working, I cook. You cook." Haran could not hide her surprise. The silent, mysterious human escort likes to cook. "Yes, Your Highness." "What do you cook?" "Many things. My mother taught me before she died. She said that cooking is how you show love to people without having to say the words." Haran stared at him. It was the most personal thing he had ever said to her. It was also deeply sad, and she did not know how to respond to it. "I am sorry about your mother," she said finally. "It was a long time ago. Your Highness." The moment passed, and Teo's face returned to its usual blank expression. But Haran had seen something beneath the surface, just for a second. The human was not empty inside. He was simply very good at hiding what he carried. She thought about his file again. The black marks. The hidden information. The 2 words that haunted her thoughts. Soul survivor. "It's the incident in your file," she said carefully. Will you tell me about it? No, Your Highness. Why not? Because it is not something you need to know, and because I do not like to remember it. Before Haren could push further, the door opened and Subin rushed inside. Her gentle face was pale with fear and her hands were shaking. Your Highness, Subin said, her voice trembling, the captain needs you on the bridge immediately. There is something on the long-range sensors. Something bad. Haren and Teho followed Subin through the corridors of the Celestial Dawn. The ship felt different now, the air heavy with tension. Crew members hurried past them with worried expressions. Something was very wrong. The bridge was a large circular room filled with screens and control panels. Captain Duyen stood at the center, staring at a holographic display that showed their ship as a small blue dot surrounded by red points of light. 12 red points, closing in from all directions. Your Highness, Captain, Duyen said, bowing quickly. We have a serious problem. Those ships appeared on our sensors 10 minutes ago. They came out of nowhere, like ghosts. Who are they? Haren asked. The captain's face was grim. We analyzed their energy signatures. They matched the Crimson Blade. Haren felt her blood turn to ice. The Crimson Blade was the most feared assassin guild in the galaxy. They had existed for over 1,000 years. They had killed emperors, destroyed governments, started wars. When the Crimson Blade took a contract, they never failed. They had a perfect record of completed missions, and they charged fortunes for their services. And now 12 of their ships were surrounding the Celestial Dawn. Someone wants me dead very badly, Haren said quietly. 12 Crimson Blade assassins. That is an army. Can we run? Subin asked, her voice small and scared. Captain Duyen shook his head. Their ships are faster than ours. They have already locked onto our position. If we try to flee, they will catch us within hours. Then we fight, Haren said. I am not afraid of assassins, Your Highness. With respect, you have never faced the Crimson Blade. Each one of those ships carries a single killer. Each killer is trained from childhood to be a perfect weapon. They have killed Korathi warriors. They have killed Valoran minespeakers. They have never, in their entire history, failed to complete a mission. Haren looked at the red dots on the display. They were moving closer, slowly, like predators circling prey. They were in no hurry. They knew their target had nowhere to run. How long until they reach us? She asked. At their current speed, approximately 2 hours. Haren turned to Teho, who had said nothing since they entered the bridge. He was standing perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. His face was calm, almost peaceful, like a man watching clouds drift across a summer sky. Well, human? Haren said bitterly. Any suggestions? Any clever plans? Or will you simply stand there and watch while they kill us all? Teho did not answer immediately. He continued to study the display, his dark eyes moving slowly from one red dot to another. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. The empty politeness was gone. In its place was something hard and cold. Your Highness, I need you to return to your quarters with Subin. Lock the door from inside. Use your telepathy to monitor what happens in the ship. But do not open the door for anyone except me. Haren laughed, but there was fear in it. You cannot be serious. You want me to hide while you fight 12 Crimson Blade assassins alone? That is suicide. I am not asking for your permission. Wantaho turned to face her, and Haren took an involuntary step backward. His eyes had changed. They were no longer blank and empty. They were alive now, burning with something ancient and terrifying. I am telling you what is going to happen. You will go to your quarters. You will lock the door. You will wait. And when this is over, I will come for you. When this is over? You mean when you are dead and they are breaking down my door? No, Your Highness. Teho smiled, and it was the most frightening thing Haren had ever seen. I mean when I am finished killing them. He walked past her toward the door, already moving differently. His steps were silent. His body was loose and relaxed, like a predator preparing to hunt. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. Captain, seal the bridge after the princess leaves. Keep the crew locked in their stations. Whatever you hear in the corridors, whatever you see on the security cameras, do not open any doors until I tell you it is safe. What are you going to do?" Captain Doyon asked. Tay-Ho did not answer. He simply walked out into the corridor and disappeared into the darkness of the ship. Heron stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She had called him worthless. She had called him boring. She had dismissed him as a forgettable nothing. But as she watched him walk toward 12 of the deadliest killers in the galaxy, she realized she had made a terrible mistake. She had no idea what a human could really do. Haran sat on the floor of her quarters with her back against the locked door. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were pressed flat against the cold metal floor. Every part of her mind was reaching outward, stretching through the ship like invisible fingers. Suben sat in the corner, hugging her knees to her chest. She had stopped crying 10 minutes ago, but her face was still wet with tears. She was not a fighter. She was a handmaiden, trained in diplomacy and service, not war. "Can you feel them?" Suben whispered. Haran nodded slowly. "They are boarding now. 12 minds, cold and focused. They feel like knives in the darkness." The first assassin entered through the cargo bay at the bottom of the ship. Haran felt his mind clearly, a sharp and disciplined presence. He was Korathi, one of the stone-skinned warriors she had originally requested as her escort. But this one had gone wrong somewhere, twisted by the crimson blade into something terrible. He moved through the cargo bay with professional care, checking corners, watching for traps. His thoughts were simple and clear. Find the princess, kill her guards, complete the mission. Then he stopped. Haran felt his confusion. Something was wrong. There was a shadow in the corner that had not been there a moment ago. The Korathi turned toward it, raising his weapon. He never finished the motion. Haran gasped as the Korathi's mind vanished. It was not a slow fade like natural death. It was sudden and absolute, like a candle blown out by a hurricane. One moment he existed, the next he was nothing. Haran breathed. "What?" Suben asked. "What happened?" "He killed one. The first assassin is dead." Suben's eyes went wide. "Already? But they just boarded. How is that possible?" Haran did not answer. She was already focusing on the second and third assassins who had entered through the port airlock. They were working together, moving in perfect coordination, covering each other as they advanced through the corridor. They were both Psyloxi, reptilian species known for their regeneration. You could cut off a Psyloxi's arm, and it would grow back within hours. They were almost impossible to kill permanently. Almost Haran felt them stop. They had found something in the corridor ahead. A body? No. There was no body from the first assassin. The Korathi had simply vanished, leaving nothing behind. The two Psyloxi exchanged thoughts. A quick telepathic communication that Haran caught fragments of trap. Careful, something wrong. They were right. Something was very wrong. The human came from above. Haran felt the impact through the two Psyloxi minds. A moment of shocking violence that her telepathy translated into pure sensation. Pain, surprise, terror. The first Psyloxi died instantly. His brain destroyed before his body could begin to regenerate. The second tried to fight back. Haran felt him lashing out with claws and teeth, his regeneration already working to heal the wounds appearing on his body. He was fast and strong and nearly immortal. He lasted for seconds. 3, Haran whispered. Her voice was shaking now. 3 dead. The fourth assassin was a Valoran. Haran felt sick when she recognized the mental signature. One of her own people, a traitor who had sold her gifts to the Crimson Blade. The Valoran woman was powerful, her telepathy reaching out through the ship like a searchlight. Hunting for the human who had killed her companions, she found him. Haran felt the Valoran's telepathic attack, a focused beam of mental energy designed to destroy the human's mind from inside. It was a killing technique that Haran herself knew how to use. Against a normal human, it would be instantly fatal. The attack hit something and bounced back. Haran felt the Valoran's shock, her confusion, her sudden fear. The human's mind was not empty and vulnerable like other humans. It was a fortress of ice and iron. Walls built through pain and training that the Valoran could not penetrate, and then the human was there, in front of her. Moving faster than she could react, the Valoran's last thought was a single word: impossible. For the ship shuddered as more assassins breached the hull. Haran felt them spreading through the celestial dawn like poison through blood. They were no longer moving carefully. They had heard the silence on their communication channels. They knew their companions were dying. They were afraid. Haran had never felt a Crimson Blade assassin feel fear before. She had touched their minds when they entered the ship, and they had been like machines, cold and certain of their victory. Now they were scared. The fifth assassin was a massive creature from a species Haran did not recognize. It had 4 arms and skin covered in natural armor. It carried weapons in each hand, enough firepower to destroy a small army. The human killed it in the darkness of the engineering deck. Haran felt only a brief flash of surprise before the creature's mind went silent. 5, the 6th and 7th died together, 2 more Karathi who had tried to ambush the human from both sides. Haran felt their confident attack turn to horror as they realized, too late, that the human had known they were there. That he had let them think they had the advantage. That he had been hunting them while they thought they were hunting him. 6-7. Subin was crying again, but not from fear. How is this possible? She whispered. He is just one man. One human. How is he doing this? Haran opened her eyes. They were glowing faintly silver, a sign that she was using her telepathy at full power. I do not know, she said. I have never felt anything like him. He moves through the ship like a ghost. They cannot find him. They cannot track him. They cannot stop him. The remaining assassins changed tactics. Haran felt them gathering together, abandoning their spread formation. They were linking their minds, sharing information, trying to work as a single unit against the impossible threat. 5 minds became one. It did not help. The 8th assassin died while his companions watched through his eyes. Haran felt their shared horror as they saw the human appear from nowhere, a shadow made of violence, moving with speed that should not be possible for a species so weak and fragile. 8. The 9th and 10th died seconds apart, cut down as they tried to flee toward Haran's quarters. They had given up on stealth and strategy. They were running for their target, desperate to complete their mission before the human found them. They did not make it. 10. Only 2 assassins remained. Haran felt their minds broken and terrified, hiding in a storage room near the center of the ship. They were communicating with someone outside, a handler who controlled Crimson Blade operations. They were begging for extraction, for backup, for anything. The handler refused. Crimson Blade did not accept failure. They would complete the mission or die trying. Haran felt sorry for them. They had come to kill a princess and found something else entirely. Something their 1,000 years of experience had not prepared them for. The door to the storage room opened. Haran felt the 11th assassin attack with everything he had. Weapons, explosives, desperate hand-to-hand combat. He fought like a cornered animal, with nothing left to lose. It was not enough. 11. The last assassin did not fight. Haran felt her mind clearly, a young Siloxy woman who had been recruited into the Crimson Blade as a child. She was regenerating from terrible wounds, her body desperately trying to heal damage that would have killed any other species 10 times over. The humans stood over her. Waiting, Haran felt the Siloxy's final thoughts. She was not begging for mercy. She knew there would be none. She was simply ... accepting. She had lived as a killer, and now she would die as prey. There was a strange peace in her mind, a release from the terrible life she had lived, then silence. 12. Haran let go of her telepathy. She slumped against the door, exhausted, her mind aching from the effort of tracking 12 deaths. Her hands were trembling. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The ship was quiet. Subin stared at her with wide, wet eyes. Is it over? Before Haran could answer, there was a knock at the door. A soft, calm knock, like someone arriving for tea. Your Highness. Teho's voice came through the metal, unchanged from before, empty and polite. The threat has been neutralized. You may open the door. Haran stood on shaking legs. She pressed her hand against the lock, but she did not open it. Not yet. What are you? She whispered, too quiet for anyone but herself to hear. Then she opened the door. Teho stood in the doorway, covered in blood that was not his own. His black uniform was torn in several places, and Haran could see wounds beneath, cuts and burns that should have been serious. He did not seem to notice them. His face was the same as always. Calm, empty, polite. Your Highness, he said, bowing slightly. I apologize for the delay. Some of them were more difficult than expected. Haran stared at him. She could not speak. She could not move. Behind her, Subin made a small sound of shock. The corridor behind Teho was clean. There were no bodies, no bloodstains on the walls or floor. It was as if nothing had happened, as if 12 of the deadliest killers in the galaxy had not just died within these metal halls. Where are they? Haran finally managed to ask. The bodies. Where are the bodies? Disposed of, Your Highness? The crew should not have to see such things. Disposed of? You killed 12 Crimson Blade assassins in less than an hour and disposed of all their bodies. Yes, Your Highness. She was close to him now, close enough to see the small details she had missed before. The scars on his hands, faint white lines crossing his knuckles, the way his eyes never stopped moving, even when his body was perfectly still. The controlled rhythm of his breathing, steady as a machine. I felt them die, she said quietly. I felt every single one of them. I felt their confidence turn to confusion. I felt their confusion turn to fear. I felt their fear turn to... She paused, searching for the right word. Despair. They were the Crimson Blade. They have never failed in 1,000 years. And you made them feel despair. Teho said nothing. The Siloxy woman. She stopped fighting at the end. She just accepted it. She knew she could not win. She knew nothing she did would change what was going to happen. Haran looked into his dark eyes, trying to find something there, anything that would explain what she had witnessed. What did you do to her? I ended her suffering, Your Highness. That is not what I asked. For a long moment, Teho was silent. Then something shifted in his face, a tiny crack in the wall he kept between himself and the world. Come inside, Haran said. Sit down. You are wounded and you need rest. And I need answers. She led him into her quarters and made him sit in a chair by the window. Subin brought water and medical supplies, her hands still shaking but her face determined. She began cleaning Teho's wounds while Haran sat across from him, watching his face. The incident in your file, Haran said. The one they marked as classified. The one that made you a sole survivor. Tell me what happened. Teho looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked out the window at the stars of the contested rim, those cold and distant lights in the darkness. Was part of a military unit, he said slowly. 47 soldiers on a protection mission. We were escorting a diplomat through hostile territory. The Crimson Blade ambushed us. Haran felt her heart tighten. How many assassins? 23. 23 Crimson Blade against 47 soldiers. We were not normal soldiers, Your Highness. We were trained specifically for missions like this. We were supposed to be the best humanity had to offer. We were not good enough. What happened? They killed us. One by one, hour by hour, they hunted us through the facility where we had taken shelter. I watched my friends die. I watched my commanding officer die. I watched everyone I cared about die while I hid in the shadows like a coward. Subin stopped cleaning his wounds. Her eyes were wet with tears. On the second day, there were only 5 of us left. By the third day, I was alone. Teho's voice was flat, empty of emotion, as if he was describing something that had happened to someone else. I should have died too. I wanted to die, but something inside me would not let me give up. So what did you do? Teho looked at her. I stopped hiding. I stopped running. I stopped being afraid. and then I killed them. All 23 of them. It took me the rest of that day and most of the night. When the rescue team finally arrived, they found me sitting in the middle of the facility, surrounded by bodies. Haren felt cold. You killed 23 Crimson Blade assassins in a single day? They had spent 3 days hunting me, Your Highness. They were tired, overconfident. They thought I was just another human waiting to die. Something dark moved behind Teho's eyes. They were wrong. Haren stood up and walked to the window. She needed a moment to process what she had heard. 23 assassins. 47 soldiers, 1 survivor. How? She asked, without turning around. How is it possible? Humans have no gifts, no telepathy, no enhanced strength, no regeneration. You are supposed to be the weakest species in the galaxy. How can one of you do what you have done? That is exactly why, Your Highness. Haren turned to face him. Valorans have telepathy, Teho continued. Korathi have strength. Psyloxi have regeneration. Every species in the galaxy has something that makes them special, something that gives them an advantage. Humans have nothing. We are small, weak, and short-lived. We know this. We have always known this. He stood up, ignoring Subin's protests about his unfinished bandages. So we learned to be something else. We could not outfight the Korathi, so we learned to outthink them. We could not outrun the Velothi, so we learned to outplan them. We could not outlast the Psyloxi, so we learned to end fights before they could begin. Every species in the galaxy relies on their gifts. Humans rely on everything else. Haren finally understood. She had looked at humans and seen their weakness, their lack of natural advantages. But she had missed the truth hidden beneath that weakness. Humans knew they were fragile. They knew they could not compete with other species on equal terms. So they had spent centuries developing ways to make the terms unequal. They had turned their fear of death into a motivation to perfect the art of dealing it. They had transformed their short lives into an urgency that other species could not match. You are not weak, Haren said slowly. You are weapons. Your whole species. You have turned yourselves into weapons. Not all of us, Your Highness. Most humans live peaceful lives, never knowing what a small number of us can do. But yes, some of us are weapons. We are the edge of the knife that humanity keeps hidden. We are what humanity becomes when it needs to survive. Haren reached out with her telepathy, gently touching the surface of Teho's mind. She had tried this before and found only ice and iron. But now, with his walls slightly lowered, she caught a glimpse of what lay beneath. She saw a young boy watching his mother die from a disease no one could cure. She saw a teenager volunteering for a military program that promised to make him strong. She saw years of training so brutal that most volunteers died or went insane. She saw the massacre, the 3 days of hiding, the moment when fear transformed into something else entirely. She saw what he had become. Haren pulled back from his mind. Shaken. You carry so much pain, she whispered. How do you bear it? I do not bear it, Your Highness. I use it. Teho's voice softened, just slightly. Every human who goes through what I went through learns the same lesson. Pain is just fuel. Fear is just information. And death is just a problem to be solved, either by avoiding it or by giving it to someone else first. Haren looked at this plain, forgettable man who had killed 12 legendary assassins in less than an hour. She had called him worthless. She had called him boring. She had dismissed him without a second thought. She had never been more wrong about anything in her entire life. I owe you an apology, she said. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I was arrogant and foolish. You were being a princess, Your Highness. It is expected. Despite everything, Haren laughed. It was a small laugh, tired and shaky, but real. You are not boring at all, are you? She said. For the first time since she had met him, Teho smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it changed his entire face. For just a moment, he looked like a normal man instead of a weapon wearing human skin. No, Your Highness, he said. I am not. The celestial dawn emerged from the contested rim 3 days after the attack. The ship's hull was scarred from where the assassin vessels had latched on, but otherwise, it was undamaged. The crew moved through the corridors with nervous energy, speaking in whispers about what had happened, about the human who had saved them all. Harin stood on the bridge, watching the golden spires of her home world grow larger in the viewport. Valora, the heart of the Empire. The jewel of the galaxy, the place she had been born to rule someday. It had never looked more beautiful to her than it did now. Behind her, Tejo stood in his usual position. 3 steps back, hands clasped, face calm and unreadable, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. "Your Highness, Captain Duyan," said, approaching with a tablet in his hands, "I have received communication from the Imperial Palace. Your father is aware of the attack. The entire galaxy is aware." Orin was not surprised. News traveled fast in the age of instant communication. The destruction of 12 Crimson Blade assassins would be the biggest story in years. What are they saying? They are saying that the Crimson Blade has suffered its first complete failure in 1,000 years. Captain Duyan's voice held a mixture of awe and disbelief. They are saying that every assassin sent to kill you was destroyed by a single human operative. They are saying that the guild's reputation may never recover. Harin glanced back at Tejo. He showed no reaction to this news, no pride or satisfaction. He simply stood there, waiting, as he always did. "What else are they saying?" Harin asked. "They are asking who he is, Your Highness. Every intelligence service in the galaxy wants to know the identity of the human who did this. The Korathi Empire has offered a fortune for information. The Siloxy Collective has demanded that humanity hand him over for questioning. Even the Valoran Council is asking questions." "And what has humanity said?" Captain Duyan smiled slightly. "They have said nothing. Human military command has classified all information about the operative. As far as the official records show, he does not exist." Harin nodded slowly. It made sense. A weapon like Tejo would be useless if everyone knew about it. The power of humans lay in their ability to be underestimated, to be dismissed as weak and harmless until it was too late. "Leave us," Harin said. "I wish to speak with my escort privately." Captain Duyan bowed and left the bridge, taking the rest of the crew with him. The door closed, and Harin was alone with Tejo for the first time since the night of the attack. She turned to face him fully. He was wearing a new uniform, clean and black, his wounds properly bandaged beneath the fabric. His face was the same as always, but Harin saw it differently now, knew what lay beneath that calm surface. "Your mission is complete," she said. "You were assigned to protect me through the contested rim, and you have done so. The Galactic Council will reassign you to another task, another person who needs protection." "Yes, Your Highness. Is that what you want? To be sent away to protect? Some other princess, some other diplomat, some other person who will look at you and see nothing." Tejo was silent for a moment. Then he said, "What I want is not relevant, Your Highness. I go where I am ordered, and if I gave you a choice..." Harin stepped closer to him. "If I asked you what you wanted, truly wanted, what would you say?" Another long silence. See something moving behind his eyes, a struggle that he would never show on his face. The walls he had built around himself were strong, but she had seen them crack. She knew they could crack again. "I do not remember the last time someone asked me that question," he finally said. "Then perhaps it is time someone did." Harin reached out and took his hand. It was a gesture that would have scandalized her court. A princess touching a commoner, an alien touching a human. After what they had been through together, titles and protocols seemed very small. "I was wrong about you," she said. "I was wrong about humans. I looked at your species and saw weakness, fragility, a people destined to be forgotten by history. But I understand now. Humans are not weak. You are something else entirely, something the galaxy has never seen before." "And what is that, Your Highness?" Harin thought about the question. In Valoran, there was no word for what humans were. No concept for a species that took its own weakness and turned it into the deadliest kind of strength. No term for creatures who refused to accept the limits that nature had given them. "Dangerous," she said finally. "Humans are dangerous. Not because of what you can do, but because no one ever expects you to be able to do it. You hide in plain sight, looking like nothing, like no one important. And then, when the moment comes, you show the galaxy what you really are. Taeho looked at their joined hands. His expression was changing, the blank mask slipping to reveal something underneath. Surprise, uncertainty, and something else, something softer that Harin could not quite identify. "I've never met anyone like you," he said quietly. "In all my years of service, protecting diplomats and royalty and important people, I have never met anyone who looked at me and saw me. Not the weapon, not the soldier, me. Perhaps that is because no one else has seen what I have seen. No one else has felt what I have felt." Harin squeezed his hand gently. "I touched your mind after the attack, just for a moment. I saw your pain, your memories, the weight you carry every day. And I understood that beneath all that training and discipline, you are still human. Still a person? Still someone who deserves more than orders and missions and endless violence?" Taeho said nothing, but Harin saw something change in his eyes. A softening. A release of tension he had been holding for years. "I would like to make you an offer," Harin continued. "Stay with me. Not because the council assigned you, not because you were ordered to, but because I am asking you. Be my guardian, be my protector, and perhaps in time, be my friend. Your Highness, I am not sure that is appropriate. The Valoran court would never accept a human in such a position. Your father would never approve. My father will approve of whatever keeps me alive. And after what happened in the contested rim, no one will question my choice of guardian." Harin smiled. "Besides, I am a princess. I can do what I want." For a long moment, Taeho was silent. Harin could feel his thoughts racing behind those dark eyes, weighing the offer, considering the implications. Then slowly he smiled. It was the second time she had ever seen him smile, and it transformed his face once again from a weapon into a man. "That would be acceptable, Your Highness." "Harin," she corrected. "When we are alone, you may call me Harin." "Harin," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. It sounded different when he said it, more personal, more real. The celestial dawn began its descent toward the golden city below. Through the viewport, Harin could see the towers and domes of the imperial palace, the place where she had been born and raised, the place where her future waited. It would be a different future now. She had left home as a princess with everything to prove and nothing to fear. She was returning as something else. Someone who had seen the darkness between stars and survived it. Someone who had learned that true strength came in unexpected forms. And beside her, 3 steps back, stood a man who had taught her that lesson in blood and fire. In the shadows of the galaxy, news of the attack spread like ripples on water. The Crimson Blade, humiliated for the first time in their long history, began to ask questions. Who was the human who had destroyed their finest operatives? How had he done what no one had ever done before? They would learn. In time, they would learn that some humans were not worth the cost of hunting. That the species they had dismissed as weak and forgettable had produced something extraordinary, and in the halls of power across 1,000 worlds, rulers and commanders and kings began to look at humanity differently. They had always seen humans as junior partners in the galactic community, useful but unremarkable, present but unimportant. Now they began to wonder what else humans could do. What other surprises waited in that ordinary-looking species from a small blue planet? What other weapons they had hidden in plain sight? Tae-Ho did not think about any of this. He simply stood beside his princess, watching the golden city grow larger, thinking about cooking and kindness and the strange feeling of being seen for the first time in his life. He had spent years as a weapon. Perhaps it was time to learn how to be something else. Perhaps it was time to be human again.